Hey everybody. I'm done outside. Too hot. Let me see if I can find the live, yeah. Why did they change Facebook up again? I'm gonna share it. Okay, here we go. I guess it's just me. So I started at 5 something. It was before 5:30. 5.5 hours. That's all I'm doing. Ricky is in. Okay, so where are we gonna eat Saturday? That's a good question. Y'all want to go out to Parton's Pizza? Let's do Parton's Pizza. I'll post it. That's out on Cherry Lane. Pizza's no good for my diet, but what the heck. Okay, I don't know of anything that's going on. We can do the sponsors though while we're sitting here. Sure wish we could find a mechanic and a dentist and a mobile RV repair guy. I guess that's impossible to find. Let's start with grateful for your trees. That's Dickie Carr. He's Richard's nephew, and they do everything you can do with trees. Cut them down, trim them. There's Janie. Cut them down, trim them, make firewood out of them. They do retaining walls. They do bobcat work. They wear many hats. Hold on. You gotta watch these chairs, those slide out from under you. As you get older, you have to think before you move. I tell you, I don't know how hot it is, but it's hot. Okay. Where were we? Dickie Carr Sand and Gravel. That's Pat and Richard Carr. If you're in the building business or developing or something, you need sand. That's who you go to, Dickie Carr. Pat and Richard Carr. Swartz and Hanson, they are in the architectural business, and they've been on board with me for many, many years. Very active in the bike giveaway. State Farm Insurance, Jenny Stewart. A-Bird AC and Heating is Dub Peacock's company. If you think there might be an issue with your central heat and air unit, call A-Bird AC and Heating, and for $95 they come out and take a look at it for you. Old South Pancake House, 2 locations, one on University 24/7, the other one in Burleson closes at 9 or 10 at night. Steve Coburn, Coburn's Catering, 3rd generation, still on North Main. It's impossible to have an event too big for them to cater. Clay Winstead, Winstead Paint and Body, they're on White Settlement Road, 1 block west of Roberts Cutoff. Hold on. Just got a message from somebody. I'll answer it in a minute. Optimist Club of Fort Worth, that's an international organization. They do lots of good stuff for kids, for youth. They also provide us with a Christmas tree every year for the museum, which Ginger Sanders decorates every year and does a great job. See, we've got, in my old age, I'm delegating out all this extra work to Sherry Holt and Ginger and Sandy Flowers and all kinds of people. Bill Palmer, James Vinzant, everybody helps out. Fort Worth Lumber Company, they're down on Interstate 35 South. Huge complex down there. So if you need building materials, plans, you just want to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable, that's the place. Stinger's Bar and Grill is the old Mark Dean's Barbecue. It's on 199. As you get into Azle, you take the Stewart Main exit, and it's right there on the feeder road. Tri-State Dent, Jason and his team, they are mobile. They come to you, they do hail damage, door dings, minor dents. Eric Walsh, real estate developer and on the board of directors at Larry's Kids. K Ranch Roofing, Jorge Hernandez. If you think you might have roof damage, it doesn't cost you anything to find out. All you got to do is call K Ranch Roofing and they'll send somebody out. Cross Electric, Brandon Cross, they do commercial and residential, and they were voted DFW's favorites. Stroud Auto Supply, Haltom City, Riverside. Phelps Family Auto Care in the Burleson area, but they draw people from Fort Worth also. Wargacy Somerset is our legal beagles. That's a big law firm. They do everything from suing somebody to capital murder. Tiffany Burks is associated with them. Christy Jack. Great lawyers, every one of them, top to bottom. Fort Worth florist Jeanette and her team has sent many flowers all over the place for us, and they do really a good job. You don't even have to leave your house. You can do it all over the phone or the internet. Where did I end up over there? Rains Plumbing. That's a family-owned plumbing business. They really go the extra mile. Customer satisfaction is number one with them. Termite King Pest Control. Brad has all kinds of different plans. Pay by the month, or you can have them out every other week. Whatever you need. Where was Railhead Barbecue, Charlie Guerin. He's our state rep. He's also on the board of directors at Larry's Kids. He's really into the bike giveaway, really. Does a great job, brings in a lot of money. Charlie's a good guy. Rex's Bar and Grill, I just talked to Rex on the text message. He's done a fabulous job over there. Everybody concerned, whoever put all that together, number one with me. We had our birthday party there this year, a couple of Saturdays ago. That place is fabulous. I would hate to think how much money it costs to build it. Dana Lang, Dana sells Cowtown. She's in the real estate business and very knowledgeable about Fort Worth history and Fort Worth's past. Blue Mound Cafes, all 5 of them, they are sponsors on our group. Medicare and Medicaid is American Seniors Benefits of North Texas. Andrew Wallace and Chasen Smith, that's Chasen Smith. Rockwood Golf Carts and Mini Golf. Rockwood Go-Karts and Mini Golf. So on Saturday the 9th of August, the go-kart rides are $1. They're 1975 prices. And they owned it in 1975. It was down here on this end of University. Bon, B-O-M-B-O-N. That's Mark Perez. He's remodeler. He does handyman. I mean, this guy does it all. We need a mechanic. We need a dental. We need a mobile RV guy. Okay, what is your... She's still writing. I'm trying to find my notes on what you're asking me. I just had them here. This is our Burleson group. Brittany, are you on? I think we need to start charging. This, I can tell by that they're still typing. This is going to be a 2-bike answer. So Burleson, y'all are either going to have to, y'all have violated almost every rule that I've ever said. But anyway, that's okay. We're cool. Either y'all are using spell check or... Okay, you're wanting to know 2 bikes is acceptable. Okay, Brittany, if you're on here, this one's for 2 bikes. I don't even know where they stand. I think they're down about 3 bikes right now. Anyway, so on July 29th, let me make myself a note because I don't see Brittany. July 29th, 2 bikes, Burleson. Hell's Half Acre. Okay, what about it? When did they start to clean up? Well, I really ought to make this a 3-bike deal, but okay, so here's the deal. Back in the mid, say 1860s, 1870s, Fort Worth was founded in 1849. The 2nd Dragoons, Major Ripley Arnold, the folks that founded Fort Worth, left in 1853. So the little town was not very much. But the one big problem was there was no commerce here. I mean, there wasn't any way to make a living. So once the cattle drives started coming up to go to Kansas, Fort Worth through downtown, what we call now downtown, on Commerce Street, if you're familiar with that, that was where they drove 500,000 head of cattle every year, or not every year, some years, right in the middle of Fort Worth downtown. But back then that was the whole town. People lived there. If they had any kind of business or anything, it was all done downtown. There was no suburbs. So wherever you've got a lot of single young men, vices start to come in. And so the little town grew on the south end with bars and houses of ill repute, or brothels. There were several names for them. And we had a lot of prostitutes here. And there was 3 classes. The lower class was the crib girls, which for a date was 25 to 50 cents. You had the parlor girls, which was $2 to $5 a date. And then you had your girls that worked out of the saloons and the dance halls, and some out of the hotels. They were anywhere from $2 to $10. So the sheriff and the town leaders, well, in fact back then it was the marshal and the town leaders, said, hey, we sure got, it's against the law. Prostitution is against the law. Yeah, okay. So, but we need money, so fine them. I mean, depending on how much money the city needed, they might fine them. Some people, historians say they find them once every other month. I've got diaries that said they find them every other week. And the madams, Mary Porter, BB, Mrs. Rivas. Mrs. Rivas lived at 1201 Rusk, which is now Commerce, and it shows her house, and it shows 5 inmates. People that lived in the house were called inmates. Well, they were all women. So that was 1201 Rusk was owned by 3 different madams, ladies that controlled the prostitution business. So nowadays, prostitutes are usually controlled by men, by pimps. Back then it was all controlled by women. And they would have these houses that were all dolled up. They had fine china in them, silverware, carpet on the floor, or rugs on the floor, paintings. I forgot what the question is. When did they start reforming it? Okay. So there was about 3 or 4 different stages. We had reformists that came in here. One of our mayors was named Broyles, Broiles. He was a reformist. There was an attorney named Carlock, who was really just I don't know what that dude's problem was. He didn't want any alcohol, no women, no gambling, no nothing. And he lived by himself and died by himself. So the women's hold on. No, that won't work. The Women's Christian Temperance Movement. Hey, Gene and James. The Women's Christian Temperance Union came in, and they had some ladies that, I mean, they'd go toe-to-toe with these bartenders. They'd come in raising Cain. They had one lady they called Hammer Woman. She was all over the country. She'd go to all of these cattle towns and come in with hammers and break the big mirror behind the bar and all of that stuff. So they came in the 1870s and 1880s. Now this Mayor Broyles, he was against all the prostitution, so he said, shut it down. Well, long-haired Jim Cartwright said, sir, do you want to get your paycheck in the next pay periods that you're supposed to get? Well, certainly. Well, the only way we've got money coming in is from the fines from these prostitutes and the madams. It was like a doing business tax, although it was illegal. And so when they would really need money, they would hit Mary Porter, they'd hit BB, they'd hit Rivas. There was about 5 madams that really, Mary Porter's estate, probate, in the 1800s was $18,000, which was worth probably $500,000 today. She owned a lot of property downtown. Well, in fact, it was probated at $18,000. They sold the property for $80,000 before 1900. So a lot of times they would take these madams to court, and upstanding citizens like Ephraim Daggett, Mr. Ward, who owned the White Elephant Saloon, Chief of Police Maddox, he's a character witness for Mary Porter. How does that happen? He said, well, there's one particular case where Mary was charged with having known prostitutes that had been expelled from the city. Back in the 1800s, these little towns, and we were a little town, would expel you. And that meant if you ever come back, bad things are going to happen to you. You have no rights, you don't have nothing, you're probably not leaving alive. Well, Mary Porter had 2 of these ladies that had been expelled, and so Cartwright went and arrested her. And they got the 2 women that were expelled, and they didn't put them in jail, they just told them to get out of town. Anyway, so the chief of police, Maddox, he's a character witness. He says not only she has not broken any law, those 2 women were never in her house. Go over there and find them. Well, that's because they've already let them go. It's kind of like a kangaroo court. So they fined Mary regularly $500. This Mrs. Rivas, she didn't go by Miss, she went by Jessie or Jessica Rivas, Reevis. She was the last owner of that house at 1201 Rusk, which was today 1201 Commerce. I guess it's, well, on the front end, on the north end of Commerce is the Bass Towers. It's down there 11th or 12th Street. But that house just kept getting passed down. When it was originally built, Mary Porter had it built. They built those houses, those brothels. They had a lot of doors that you could exit. There was an exceptionally large amount of bedrooms. And they had bars in them. I mean, these things were pretty elegant. They had porters, maids. They changed the sheets after every date. Fine dining. And at Mary Porter's deal, she had 5 regular prostitutes. She would tell them, don't take your date to the bedroom until he's had at least 4 drinks. So these madams, I'm not sure of all of the prices. Mary Porter was pretty fair. It was 50-50. She got 50% of the whatever the date was. If the date was $5 or $10 and the drinks were $10, so that's $20, the madam got half of it. She got $10. Well, but the bad thing, these prostitutes, I guess they weren't too intelligent. every month they had to pay rent on their room. So when it all worked down, if a prostitute brought in like a $20 date, she ended up getting about $3 on the deal. But there was lots of prostitutes, as many as 1,000 on any weekend. It's hard to believe. And the acre was not an acre, it was 2.5, 3 acres, 4 acres. Okay, so Mayor Broyles, on his campaign, he said, hey, I'm going to shut down Hell's Half Acre, no more gambling, no more prostitution, no more yada, yada, yada. 3 days later, he walked all of that back. So, when 1916, when the United States government decided to make a training camp, Camp Bowie, there was a law that you could not have a business that sold alcohol or a house of ill repute within 5 miles of that camp. Well, Camp Bowie to Hell's Half Acre was about 2 miles, and it operated around the clock. But they kind of kept it on the QT a little bit, but not much. So this Women's Christian Temperance Union was a big problem for the bar owners and prostitutes and madams. But then in 1917 came along a gentleman, his name was J. Frank Norris, and he took dead aim at him. On his Sunday sermon, he would say, ladies, I need 50 of y'all down here on Friday night about 7 o'clock. First Baptist Church was downtown. Everything was downtown. And he would march those 50 women to the red light district, and he would say, okay, Larry O'Neill, your wife Maria's going to know where you're at tonight. That kind of shut down the prostitution deal overnight. But it's still, the camp wasn't open, but they closed it in 1918. We had the Spanish influenza that I think killed 50 million people around the world in 1918. It hit us hard here in Fort Worth. They used that old Camp Bowie, the mess hall was the biggest building, and that's where they would put people who had Spanish influenza on cots. And twice a day they would get them up, march them outside. They'd take all the bedding off the cots, take it outside, burn it, come back in, pour kerosene on the floor, light it, wash that out. This is about a 2-hour process. Put new bedding on the cots, put the people back on the beds. And there's a lot of them died. So, your question, Burleson, is several different groups took dead aim at shutting down Hell's Half Acre, but really just the city grew, and as it grew, other low dive places, old bars and stuff, ended up being on that south end of town until the 60s when they built the convention center. That was right in the middle of it. So, but to answer your question, the Reformist, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and those ladies they took dead aim at you. They didn't listen to anything you said. They talked over you. They came into your bar. They grabbed prostitutes sitting on guys' laps, drug them out in the street. I mean, these ladies were pretty rambunctious. And then we had some reformist politicians, which was the wave of the entire country. In the mid 1800s to about 1880, the whole country was wide open. And then people said, hey, this deal ain't working. Churches started opening up. So, but then when Reverend Norris came to town, they couldn't handle him. He used his congregation to shut it down. And in the early 20s, Reverend Norris had the largest congregation in the United States. First Baptist here, then he had a church in Detroit. And when airfare in the 20s was in its infancy, he flew every week to Detroit to preach too. First Baptist. At one time they burned his church, they burned his house, they burned his church again. They had a lumberman named D.E. Chips that was friends with H.C. Meacham, the mayor. He went over and tried to kill Norris at First Baptist Church, and Norris shot him dead. They moved the trial to Austin in 27. I've got all the trial transcripts, photographs, and everything, and they found him not guilty, self-defense. So, but we've had our share of, the acre. It's 100% better. I don't think there's anything that resembles it anymore. For a time period, there was a lot of pawn shops, and the bus station was there, and it was just on the south end of town. And people were not moving to the south end of town till later. In 1900, we had 50,000 people. 6,000 of those people were African American, and they were all on the south end of town. So, okay, James, Diane, anybody got any questions? This is Fort Worth History Day. We're eating at Parton's Pizza. Her real name was Jessie, Jessie Reeves, Reeves. But in the 1888 city directory, she's listed as Jessica, and she's listed as Mrs. Jessica M. Reeves, Reevis. And her house, she was the last madam to have that house at 1201 Rusk, which is now Commerce. 3 different madams owned it. She had, back in the city directories back then, instead of calling them houses of prostitution, they would say, this house is owned by Jessica M. Reeves, Mrs. Jessica M. Reeves. And she's got 6 not inhabitants, like prisoners, inmates, 6 inmates. That's the way these city directories. It's kind of weird if you ever look at one. It says this person lived at 12th Street near the corner of 4th Street. I mean, they weren't big on. In fact, I've got one here in front of me, and here's Tanner and Toomey Leatherers, and they're on the northwest corner of Weatherford near Barnett Street. Near Barnett Street. This is 1880. Some of them, here's one that's 915 Houston. But they mostly the residential houses. Francisco Rubio was in the feed, hay, and grain business at 300 East Belknap near the corner of Calhoun. I mean, it's kind of crazy the way they... And these books are so rare, you can't send them off to have them bound. Look at it. Because the people that bind them up just say, well, we lost that book. You can't replace them. It's not like buying one of your yearbooks. So anyway, J. Frank Norris is probably the person I attribute most for taking dead aim at him. And that women's Christian Temperance Union, they were hell on wheels, I'll tell you. I researched some of those women. At one point in their time, in their life, they were married, but they weren't married when they got in that deal. Something had an effect. They ran all their husbands off. And they went all over the country. Janie, glad to see you're back on regular. I've seen you now 2 or 3 times. We don't see you much at our luncheons. I see you're still active in the Buffalo Halton Buffs luncheon, but we're going to eat pizza at Parton's this Saturday if you want to venture over there on Cherry Lane. The bike giveaway is December 13th. Farrington Field, the Billingsley Field House, the basketball park on the back side, not the front side of University. The gates, that's on a Saturday. The gates will open right around 6:30 a.m. and we'll be done by 10:30 or 11. And we're going to give away 1,400 bikes this year. The nonprofit is going to buy 1,000. I've already committed for that. I hope we get enough money in for that, and then that means I need 400 out of y'all. She's not on. I think y'all were down 3, so you should owe me 5 bikes. But I mean, message Brittany tomorrow or something, and she'll. Well, there was two. You're wanting to know about the 2 main things that really drew attention. February 8th of 1887 is when Luke Short killed long-haired Jim Cartwright, who was not sheriff at the time. He had been sheriff, but he came back to town. Old Cartwright was a crook. He'd gone to New Mexico or something and killed a couple of people. He sold protection rackets. So he had a Cartwright private investigation company downtown. All it was a bunch of hoodlums that they would come by your bar. That's how come he got gunned down at the White Elephant. Luke Short was the owner of it, and he came by and said, hey, bad things are going to happen if you don't hire my deputies to make sure you don't have any problems here. And Short said, go to hell. And push came to shove, and Cartwright, that was his last breath. But then there was a prostitute, her name, nobody knows her name. They called her Sally. She had her throat cut, and she was nailed to a door. Now that kind of got national attention. And so that brought all of the religious ministers in town. They immediately had a meeting. They didn't even have Sunday church. That happened on a Friday night. It didn't get around town till Saturday. Church was suspended, and they just had meetings in the street down at the Acre. And that was, the bars kind of knew it was the Stag Saloon, Waco Tap, the Black Elephant, all of those bars. They saw what was happening in the streets, so they didn't even open. And nobody knows the reason that Sally got. They said that it was that attorney Carlock. I don't know, maybe it might have been. That guy he was bipolar for sure, if not complete maniac. he'd go into the courtrooms and throw stuff at the judge, and he wouldn't take any. I don't know how he got any business. He wouldn't defend you if you were in jail for drinking or fighting or prostitute. He wouldn't defend you because he didn't believe in any of that stuff. So I don't know how he got any business. I mean, the only people that he could be a lawyer for had to be squeaky clean. So how? I don't know how he got any business. So maybe he had a run-in with that Sally. I read that in the Fort Worth Democrat. It didn't say what the run-in was, but he'd go down there on Friday night and try to shoo fly everybody away. And him and Sally, and nobody knows that was her name, they had push shove matches. So I don't know, maybe it was him. Okay, we didn't draw a crowd. Anyway, it's almost lunchtime. Heck, I'm ready. The girls are gone. What a day this one was. I gotta go figure out something to eat. So, I will talk to you good people a little later. We're eating at Parton's Pizza on Cherry Lane Saturday at 1. Come join us. I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, y'all have a wonderful afternoon. If you go outside, stay hydrated.